First time in history, we have a woman mayor. I'm excited. As much as I would have been excited to be the mayor, I think it's very important, like how you've said, it's important for us to all get behind and support her.
What I see is the chief executive in the city and the chief executive in the county need to get together and say, here are the fundamental health priorities that we got to fix.
All right.
And here's what I'm able to put in the pot. What are you able to put in the pot?
We look forward to having an exciting time with our county exec today. I've always been a tremendous fan of his. This is our second episode, and I am so appreciative that he could make the time out of his busy schedule to come here today. And we have our county exec in Wayne County. I call him the county exec. I actually call him the boss when I text him because he is the boss of Wayne County. Warren Evans is here today, and I want to thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
Yeah, and
glad to be here.
Well, thank you. I would be remiss. Let me just go over some highlights of a stellar career, and we're looking for more from him. I'm sure he's like, I've given enough, but from an individual who started out, as I understand it, you started out as a sheriff working, and I think you actually worked in Kaufman's courtroom when you, we'll get to Kaufman and all those cast of characters. Started out as a sheriff in the courtroom, ultimately became a lawyer, I think since 1987, then worked as the administrative director of the county commission. Thereafter, worked in the prosecutor. You've been a prosecutor and definitely director of special projects. And then became the elected sheriff for Wayne County, I believe 2 terms. After those 2 terms, became the chief of police for the city of Detroit. And thereafter, you became our county executive. And a lot of people thought when he decided to run for county exec, Wayne County executive, the status and the situation and where we were at from a financial perspective, I think from a morale perspective in the county and also in the state of Michigan at the time, you had a great career at that point. Why take a chance on not doing so well? But I remember having lunch with him and, questioning why he would want to do it. And he says, I love service. I love community service. I love helping people and I like challenges. So he took on a challenge of a county that was, and correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers, $52 million in debt. And what people don't seem to understand is back in 2013, 2014, our state had the idea that emergency managers and bankruptcy was the way to go to right side finances. And that's something that you persuaded the governor and our county not to go into. And look what happened. 4 years later, I'm sitting at the state of a county address that you gave. Not only were we not in bankruptcy, you had well over $100 million, I think $131 million, $130 something million in a rainy day fund. This is just 4 years later. And you and your team, and what's interesting, our office is on Griswold, your office is on Griswold, and I see your car out there 7 a.m, 6 p.m, and then your team is even there afterwards. Because, I know the cast of characters that you had, and my hat's off to you. And we're so grateful that you took that time and that effort and your skills and your people to right side our finances, not with, the tools of emergency manager and bankruptcy, just a lot of hard work, a lot of intellect, a lot of teamwork. So today we are a county that's got a AA rating, or is it AA or AAA?
I think it's getting close to triple, but not quite there yet. It's AA something else, plus something.
Well over $300 million, $380 million in a rainy day fund. And you sit at the top of Southeast Michigan, even though he's a humble guy. He won't say it, but, let me be his cheerleader. Again, I just had to say those words and give you your kudos for what you've done. And, again, Warren Evans, county exec, thank you.
Well, thank you, Todd. I don't know it's getting kind of deep in here. I can feel the water rising. Ankles are getting wet. He was so effusive with the comments, but I appreciate it. I really do. I've been directly related to Wayne County in some form or fashion for 54 years. Awful long time, from being a starting deputy in the sheriff's office in 1970.
Okay.
All the way to now. And so you kind of ask about why did I decide to take this challenge of being county executive, it was like I'd been with the county so long, and I thought the county's name was being dragged through the mud. Maybe deservedly so, but still because of the finances and other scandals that were going on at the time. And I just figured it was something that I could fix and something that I could have a team do. Quite often, if you look at, and I won't name the other administrations, but some people lead through, in a sports analogy, would say free agents.
Okay.
They hire a number of people to come in and fix certain issues and problems. And while they have the technical expertise to do it, they don't have the commitment to the community. It's just not naturally there because they came from other places. I tend to want to do things through a team, and I'm always happy to build a team. And you'll never hear me say, I did this or I did that. The team did it because they really did. But that takes some nurturing to be able to create a team. But what you get when you have the team is their anchor in the community. And so I avoid, I think, most times stepping in trouble on community concerns because I really have a diverse enough team that I listen to, that we all get together before general decision making. And those other parts of the community that are well represented in that team will come and say, wait, county executive, have you thought about this? Have you thought about how this is going to impact Inkster? Have you thought about how this is going to impact Highland Park? Have you thought about how this is going to impact Dearborn? Those sorts of things. And so it helps when you don't feel comfortable with a generic team.
Right.
I want the team to look like Wayne County, not look like me or look like anybody else. I mean, I want young, old.
Yes.
I want some wisdom, but I also want some young energy.
Yeah.
I don't care what the sexual orientation or any of that is. Makes no difference to me if they can bring value to what we're trying to create in the county. And so I think we've been pretty successful in the last 10 years.
I mean, pretty. I mean, you see, you continue to not, let me be, again, your cheerleader, but you said Inkster, you said Dearborn, let's talk about Detroit. And, I bring up Detroit, number one, as a Detroiter, number one, as a city that I love. I love Wayne County, but definitely love the city of Detroit. And I know you do too. And it's interesting, along the way, I truly believe, it's my opinion, and I think that a lot of people who are insiders and a lot of people who even Wall Street will look at it, the resurgence came to Wayne County before it even came to Detroit. And I think that along the way, and I've heard you comment, jokingly, but really seriously, there's a lot of things that Wayne County did to help Detroit in its resurgence and a lot of things. Can you explain some of the things that you did along the way with the current outgoing mayor, Mike Duggan, along the way? And I know you all have worked for 30, 40 years, interacting in the same office at sometimes, but what you were able to do to help the city of Detroit.
Well, I think one of the things that's really important is you got to understand that governments have the natural tendency to push at each other. Everybody wants to be the big fella. And if everybody wants to be the big fella, nobody's going to be a big fella. And so I've attempted to try to blend what the county could do into Detroit's resurgence without necessarily trying to take credit for anything. But certainly, I think, as you know, when COVID was here as an example, we had CARES dollars that came from the federal government. We had ARPA dollars that came from the federal government. And for those who don't understand how that works, every municipality gets money, got money during the process. And so when I would take ARPA or CARES dollars and send them to job readiness programs in the city of Detroit, or I would send them to small business relief programs that we create for small businesses, minority businesses in the city, not only was I using the county dollars to do that, but Detroit had its own dollars that it didn't use to do that.
Right.
And so, if you ask the average person in the city of Detroit where this came from or that came from, but probably 99% of them will tell you it came from the city of Detroit. Many things did come from the city of Detroit, but you didn't really hear Detroit touting the county's contribution, but that didn't stop me from doing it. It's the right thing to do.
So I'm smiling because this is the opportunity, and this is really what I wanted you here, really to really let people know, as much as you don't take credit for that, even in that statement that you say, and if people don't understand it, is that what you did allowed the city to go on, some might even say as an ongoing concern, to continue to do the things because it was able to take its money and shore budgetary issues and create other programs that might otherwise needed to be doing what you were doing for the city. And you still don't seem to want to take credit for that. So, this is what we're here. All these people in this room are here to really let you know that. But, so it's important now. We have a change in, we're going to have a change.
And it'll be, in many respects, an important change that will bring a different viewpoint to a number of things, the new mayor. And my job is to find a way to work with the administration. That's the only way things get done. And I have no doubt that I'll be able to do that. Because at the end of the day, some people go into political office for a couple of things. One is they like the adulation that they get, the special kind of treatment that just kind of comes with it. And other people do it because helping people is important.
Right.
And I don't want to over dramatize that. I'm not trying to do that. But to me, that's what public service should be about. I don't really feel the need to pat myself on the back, but I do look through a pretty clear lens at what the impact is on the citizens and whether it's positive and whether it's not, in dealing with some fundamental realities. And one is, it doesn't make sense to be an African-American county executive if you forget you're African-American.
Right.
There are certain roles. I mean, there's certain management functions that anybody can do if you have the skills to do it. But like any other group of people, you have to have a sensitivity for the plight of people that look like you. And I'm very comfortable I have that and have always had it. But I also understand I represent 1.8 million people, and the majority of them are not people that look like me.
Right.
So I clearly need to be fundamentally fair with the things that I do. And quite frankly, I have not gotten backlash for that level of leadership.
Well, no, you've managed that ship very well, and I was unaware, and I've just become aware of a lot of it sometimes when I've been able to come to the state of the county, and you're really transparent in the numbers because we can go on a lot of sites and see what you're doing. But, we've felt the positive impact that your tenure in office has felt for the city of Detroit. We feel that. I see that in some of the programs, and I consider myself, kind of an insider who's had the pleasure of working for you in the past, or some of your team in the past, and I look at it from I didn't consider myself a political insider until this past mayoral run, and it was to say it was exciting would be an understatement. To say that I learned something would also be an understatement. And along the way, I met a lot of good people, and you have sort of kind of like a godfather status even in the city of Detroit, and especially now with the exit of Mike Duggan. We're going to be looking to you more along the way. So how do you see yourself as the role? And, I'll get back to some of the election stuff and things like that. But I think it's important to know, like you said, we're going to work together. How do you see, or how would you envision your role? And not to set something in stone, but how do you see your role in helping Mayor Sheffield in her transition and in her ascendancy into that role?
I think the main way is be helpful when asked.
Okay.
And try to give good advice if good advice is asked for. But I mean, I think it is clear in Wayne County that the 800-pound gorilla in Wayne County is the city of Detroit. And that doesn't change necessarily. The region goes as Detroit goes. And sure, we all play significant roles, but I think the new leadership is helpful. And I think she certainly has the skill sets to do it. And my commitment is to help, but you don't help by trying to tell people what they need to do. You help hoping that people will at least take your advice into consideration when they're making decisions and do things. I mean, we've had administrations in the past where awful bright people, but not enough gray hair in the mix to be able to give some wisdom to the thought process. I mean, whoever the chief executive is the chief executive, and the decisions will be theirs. And I would never try to interfere with someone's decision, but I've often hoped that they would at least listen to my view and opinion before they made their decision. And I felt a lot better that if they decided not to take the advice, and at least I gave it.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think that goes to, what I was saying earlier is it's really important to have a cabinet and a team that looks like the entire jurisdiction. In the county, that's significantly different than the city of Detroit, but it keeps you from unconsciously discounting anybody. Whether you are intentionally discounting or whether it's accidental, the impact's the same.
So my question, and I don't know how this works, and maybe you can explain it. A lot of when you have a new team come in, you have what's called a transition team, and it appears as though from Cranes that Butch Hallowell is going to be leading that transition team. If asked, would you join the team, or is that able? Are you able to do that as an elected official? So
I don't know if I technically could or not. I would desire not to be an official member of the team because I just think that would be a conflict. And, I'm not asking.
Okay.
I don't think that's happened in the past, but I would certainly be willing to talk to team members or the mayor-elect about anything that they wanted to talk to us about. One of the things, for example, that just stands out is we have real healthcare issues in this county, as are many, many places. And the level of poverty in many areas, and that makes healthcare something very difficult to provide. Wayne County has a health department that serves 42 communities. Detroit has a health department for the one, and they don't talk to each other.
Right.
I mean, if you got both of the directors in a room, they would swear they do.
Yeah.
But they don't. Each one has its own fiefdom and does things. And I think everybody's intention is to do well. The problem is if you're not collaborating on what you're doing and you're fighting each other for dollars in Lansing, that's not the best way to provide better health care for the residents of Detroit and Wayne County.
I learned that, and I wasn't as aware of that until I ran for office this past time. And, doing our research, and like I said, a lot of people who were in this room helped me in my campaign run. And I learned that there was not a lot of overlap and a lot of synergies going in, particularly in that department, because healthcare is so important. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we got a shutdown right now, the longest ever, and what seems to be ending. But I looked at that and I thought that's a mistake. Because I know I know how much you're willing to help, and I know how accessible you are. Particularly, you're accessible to the average person like myself. But to the mayor to get a call and to have your departments work interactively is nothing but a phone call and conversation thereafter. And you want to make the best use of the dollars that you have. And I thought that was strange that didn't happen because it's so important for our community.
It is, but there are political turf wars that go back a long time. And, from Governor Engler forward, Detroiters, and I was born and raised in the city of Detroit. My mother was born and raised in the city of Detroit. But you don't have, how do I best explain this? You don't have a history. You have a history in Detroit where important institutions for Detroiters have gone by the wayside.
All right.
Recorder's Court, mental health. I mean, you name it, into the water department.
Yeah.
So you name it, Detroiters are sensitive to any discussion of combining things, because it would be looked upon as, oh, here's Wayne County trying to take over this, or Detroit's losing this, maybe the other way. And so I don't see that as the issue. What I see is the chief executive in the city and the chief executive in the county need to get together and say, here are the fundamental health priorities that we got to fix.
All right.
And here's what I'm able to put in the pot. What are you able to put in the pot? And can we go arm in arm to Lansing to get the additional, rather than Detroit lobbying in Lansing, me lobbying in Lansing, and we're actually fighting each other. And at the end of the day, less money will come back because of the fight. So, my goal is to improve healthcare outcomes, not to be in charge.
So here's how I see it. Well, one, we have, for those who are watching, we have really the first common ground for our mayor to contact you about, because I am totally, you as an individual, you represent an individual and represent a county that's not looking to like you said, the way you started it, you said, I'm going to do if someone asks me. That's your personality. That's always been your personality. No hubris, and you're not looking to pad your ego.
Let me say this just for a minute.
Yeah.
I need to right here.
Yeah.
I have had this discussion with the mayor-elect, and the mayor-elect has agreed in theory that there needs to be more collaboration. So I don't want to make this sound like,
great.
Now, I mean, we haven't done anything
Absolutely.
yet. I mean, she just won, but I mean, she has not indicated in any way that that's not sound thinking. So we'll wait and see
No,
what we might be able to do. But, the more you can break down turf issues and meld the money into something constructive, the better off we're going to be. I mean, we've got terrible education outcomes, for
right.
example,
Okay.
throughout the county. I'm not just taking a slap at Detroit.
Right.
It needs to be slapped
For
like
the
a lot
state
of
of Michigan.
Absolutely. And if you take all of the school districts in Wayne County, and again, there are 43 communities, all of them have dropped in attendance since COVID. Many to the point where I think, over 10 absences in the semester or something is considered chronic. It's one thing to talk about what you can deliver in the classroom. It's another thing to say you got to at least get to the classroom for anything to be delivered.
Right.
And that's kind of part of the problem that's there. And so when the county of Wayne and the city of Detroit work on economic development projects designed to create more technical jobs, more jobs in the city and in the county, I'd be a fool not to be thinking about who's coming along to fill them.
Right.
And so when the educational outcomes are dropping off, that's a problem that we really got to deal with. And I understand it's not our turf. There we go back to the turf issue. But
you're willing to help.
And it is my turf if I'm responsible for the county and outcomes in the county. And no, it's not my technical turf, but for me to be quiet and not talk about the shortcomings would also be, I think, a ridiculous position for me to take.
I don't think anybody's ever going to accuse you of being quiet, because you have, like I said, you've been a proponent in so many different aspects. It's been a positive for the county. Let me move to this. I still don't want to get off the election. Because that's personal to me. I enjoy myself, but I want to get back to one of the things that you talked about, is transit.
Yeah.
And we're talking about regional transit. And to me, again, these are things that I learned, and I think it enhanced me as an individual, it enhanced me as a lawyer, as a professional, as a consultant. Regional transit, something, how do you see it? How do you see yourself as helping the city of Detroit particularly and the county as a whole? And working with you, I think it's the first time I think we've seen in a long time where it's the possibility that all 3 or 4 counties will be able to work together. So how do you see that? Because I think that's central to a lot of education, getting to school and all those things.
Yeah. Doctor's appointments, seniors getting to activities. Absolutely. It is there's so many levels to this. One is there's always an undercurrent of race anytime these things come up. And everybody wants to talk about that last. I'd like to talk about it first.
Please.
We have 43 communities in Wayne County. 17 of them are opt-out communities, which means they're not involved in the transit that we do have, which is generally smart buses. I'm not one of those people who's talking about pipe dreams of trillions of dollars to create
rail
and all that. I mean, but that is always an undercurrent. And this coming year, transit will be on the ballot in Wayne County.
Correct.
And what we're hoping to do is get the majority of communities and certainly the majority of voters voting in favor of transit so that we can have transit plans. And we're trying to work on the plans now that interconnect communities. You got to remember, when you have an opt-out community, it doesn't make sense. You can't go through it. So you're going around different communities. People in those communities don't have the benefit of transit. And it's not really just a Detroit issue. If you look at it closely, all of these communities, not all of them, many of these communities are dying on the vine population-wise because the seniors, the kids with young families aren't staying. And one of the reasons that they're not staying is the access to where young people want to be now is the city of Detroit. And, you and I might look at it differently. I mean, I'll still go out in the barn and work on my hot rods. But kids, many young people don't even want a driver's license. They want the transit ability to get from point A to point B, and the opt-out communities don't provide that for them. And so, at least in my humble opinion, it's hurting their viability long-term to not be a part of a transit plan that will allow young people to stay in their communities. And you may ask, why would they stay in their communities? Because the housing prices.
So that's more than that. That's more than 30. Really, it's a substantial portion of the communities, of the 43 communities. You got 17 opt out. What would you do? And what would your plans be to do to engage them, to change their mind, like you said, some of it could be race, some of it could be other socioeconomic based things. What is your plan to, because you got to get them.
Negotiating with them. And we have been doing that for months. And I would hope that by the time transit's on the ballot, we would have collected the information from all of these communities and work with the communities to figure out what they specifically need. There are some communities that are, the whole full blown major bus routes is not important to them, but getting seniors to the senior center, almost an Uber or a small van, whatever it is they need, we need to acknowledge that that's what the leadership in those communities need. And we need to tailor a plan that fits the uniqueness of those communities. And by the way, the general thought about transit has softened significantly on the issue of race. It is not the issue it was 20 years ago.
Correct.
And I fully expect that transit will pass. But just passing again, having been with the county as long as I was, as I have been, I remember the days when the county was the bully.
Right.
The county's going to do what the county's going to do, and all these small communities just fall in line. That has never been my approach. It's a team approach. We got 43 communities. And I think the beauty of Wayne County is the distinct identity of those 43 communities. Right. I want to help them get where they're trying to go. Big me, little you. And I say that because I think having worked that way for the last 10 years has created a certain comfort level with most of the communities that we are really trying to be partners.
Right.
Not beat up on them or those sorts of things. So I think it's working. I think we're ahead of the game. We still got a lot more work to do, but I mean, of the 43 communities, I bet we've met with 35 or 36 of them already and have been in dialogue about what do you need? What could we give that would help alleviate maybe some of your general fund expenditures that you're spending on senior transportation and those sorts of things. And that would help to justify a millage. Yeah. And it would help to justify supporting a millage that would have some minor increases, not huge, but if it's providing a service that allows the general fund in those communities to not have to pay something, it can almost be a cost neutral.
So, we're more than halfway in, and I've been talking about it, and I've been teasing the issue. This year's election, it was, we have, first time in history, we have a woman mayor. I'm excited. As much as I would have been excited to be the mayor, I think it's very important, like how you've said, it's important for us to all get behind and support her along the way. And it was really, it seemed longer than it was, but now looking back, it happened fairly quickly. How did you see how this election cycle was? I mean, give me your.
I will say this. I think that this was the first election I can remember when there were multiple qualified people running for the office. And if people think back, that hadn't been the case. And so we couldn't have gone wrong in several different areas.
Right.
And I think that I knew at the primary, I mean, when you get over 50% of the vote in the primary, it's toast. I mean, that's, and I think that she ran a magnificent campaign. I also think that she's going to be drinking water out of a fire hose for months, as any new executive would, but certainly one that has folks out there that want to test her. It's the first woman. And so once you get your sea legs, I think it's a different story than when you were initially drinking water out of the fire hose. And you're going to have a number of people who worked hard during the campaign. And now you'll start to realize this has happened, certainly to me, that it wasn't as altruistic as I thought when they were helping.
Right. I see it different. I came in fourth, and as much as the energy and the momentum took place, I saw, even though our mayor got 51%, I looked at it as a new race the next day. And I was encouraged that at this point, because what we saw in Pastor Kinlock was I think a strategy from the first time and during the leading up to the primary, was that I've got a base, I'm going to get into there, and then I'm going to use all my resources at that point and unfold all my resources. And I don't think we saw that happen. And but also now looking back at it, I do believe momentum is important. And he did not have the momentum August 6th that, Sheffield continued and continued and continued. And like you said, she ran a great campaign, but I just think that August 6th, you start 0-0, and it just, I was just disappointed because I thought that he had I'm a competitor. We're lawyers. And, as lawyers, we like to compete. When you were doing practicing law, you want to win. And you'll do whatever you can and unfold strategies that you can to do that. And I didn't see that. I saw it the last 2 weeks, but these races are over with the absentees a lot of times.
Yeah, and Detroit voters, in my estimation, are big on knowing you,
Mhm.
big on seniority in the game, having a comfort level about the person. They may not know all the nuances about your management skills or this and that and the other,
Right.
but they have a feel, almost like juries do. I mean,
Yes.
you've gone before juries and looked at them and talked to them and felt a comfort level, and I've connected. Well, voters like to connect with candidates too. And the longer that you've been there in the public eye and been through stuff has tremendous value.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change on August the 3rd or whenever the primary
Right.
is.
Right.
It really doesn't. I mean, I think you build off of it. But politics is a very strange game. Game's not really the right word.
No, but
Yeah,
I
but
get what, I don't see it.
it is one where there are so many qualities. For example, I've been in elected office now. This is my third 4-year term,
Mhm.
and I've had 2 4-year terms as sheriff. You would know this, but most people would not know that I'm an introvert by nature. I I
Right.
just am.
No, I know.
I mean, I can give.
We're gonna get to some of your hobbies.
I mean, I can give a speech to thousands of people, but I'm not connecting with them like an extrovert would. And so different personalities find different ways to adapt, to
Right.
things. I think and I would tell anybody if they were interested in public office, don't just go file to run. You spend a year or two at community group meetings, at all of those functions so that people start to see your face before you're asking for something.
Yes.
And I think that is very important to voters. I don't know that it's just Detroit. I think it's everywhere, but certainly it's true in Detroit.
Right.
Detroiters want seniority.
Absolutely. And you spoke of juries. It's almost like, I had a professor who says, you want to feel like you can just jump into that box and sit right next to them. And it's the same way when you knock on someone's door, but you got to go to the community outreach programs. You got to go to the mixers, and you got to make yourself known. And I found that out in the process, when I engage people, but it's the opportunity to continue that engagement over a long period of time. I think that's the biggest thing that that you're raising right there, is that this is not just in this period of time from April to August. This thing is a long distance run.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, you said you got 3 terms. Can we get another term out of you?
I'm going to run again next year. I'm up for the.
Thank you.
I'm up for what would be my 4th term.
Okay. Okay.
I don't take anything for granted.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, people ask, well, when are you just going to go home and go home and do what? There is changing the culture in organizations is critical. For example, I work with people who are regional leaders every day. I won't mention the names. You can
Right.
figure them out. That if you use a sports analogy, they like free agents.
Right.
They like to bring in people with the technical skills to do certain things, and they're really bright and they're really, sharp people, but they're not connected to the community because they're not a part of the community.
But it doesn't enhance the culture.
Well,
Like what you're saying, like you said earlier.
building a team
Yeah.
starts to do that. I think that's certainly my style. But even that, it takes years to turn. I mean, government's like a battleship, and turning a battleship around is not an easy thing. It's not a speedboat.
Right.
And the amount of time it takes to turn it around and create your own culture takes time. And so while I would have thought, 20 years ago, 4 years, I, figure this out now, maybe more like 12, maybe
Yeah.
more like 16. Yeah.
No, because I think that's a lot of um angst or trepidation that, people in Wayne County, not only people in Wayne County, but I still believe, and I said this, so goes Detroit or so goes Wayne County, whatever the two, so goes the state of Michigan. And some people on the other side of the state might not want to agree with that, but reluctantly in closed doors, they will. Just the numbers alone are outnumber everyone else, and the economy alone outnumbers everyone else. So, I am, encouraged to hear that, because I hadn't asked you that, and we talk from time to time when we see each other on the street, and I didn't get a chance to ask you that. And I definitely want to be a part of anything that you do, because everything you've done has been really to benefit others, not yourself. So, but I guess we got a couple more minutes, and I gotta go through some things that I wrote down. I talked to somebody that and you see every day, because I had to, and these are some things. Well, something I do want to say this. We're gonna put it out on our social media. You introduced me, and I have done some work. You and I have volunteered to do some work for Century Gun Club. And that's something I know is a hobby of yours. Century Gun Club, for people who don't know, is the oldest African American gun club in the state of Michigan.
Correct.
And unfortunately, on Saturday night, the clubhouse burned down.
Burned to the ground.
And I know that some of the other gun clubs are helping with storage of some of the property that was able to be saved. And, this is something that, I was going to ask you about.
I mean, its members,
Yeah.
an African American gun club built that. The members
Right.
built it in 1950, and it's been an active club, and there's some really good shooters there. When you start to talk about this, people talk about shooters, they're thinking handguns. We're talking about trap shooting when
Exactly.
you're shooting clay pigeons that come out of a
Yeah.
machine, and it's an international sport. And there's some great shooters in the club.
Someone told me that you shot 22 or 23 out of 25.
I've shot 25 out of 25 several times,
Okay.
but let's look at that by comparison.
Right.
I have guys in the club that have shot 500 out of 500.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
I'm still in the minor leagues.
All right.
But I'm not a beginner.
No, and it's, so what I did want to do was make sure that we use this opportunity, because there's going to be some fundraising. I know, insurance is not going to take care of everything. So we have to band around this. This is something that, I'm a member. I haven't actually been, but I think it's just a great thing to support. It's institutional in our community, particularly for those people who were the founders. I think one of the city cab owner, guy owned the cleaners. You're talking about those original members who actually built this club. So there's going to be a fundraiser, I think, on Black Friday. Is that what I heard from one of the members? So we'll put that out on our social media about that.
Great. It's something that historically should be supported, and it's a great recreation and really great for kids, the trap shooting. And, there's always some mother gets tensed up as soon as somebody says that. This is not running around with handguns.
Right.
This is about gun safety. This is about learning from senior adults in the community who have done their job to be good citizens forever. And this is a sport like any other sport. And I think the discipline of being involved in the sport and learning the gun safety that's involved is probably something that's good for everybody.
I absolutely believe that. And speaking of, let me go a little further. Speaking of Blacks institutions, tell us about Idlewild. I know a little bit about Idlewild. My grandfather, and now I think we gave all the property to my cousin. We haven't built up there, but we have 6 lots in there. But could you tell us? A lot of people don't know what Idlewild is.
Idlewild, Michigan is an area that is a Black resort and has historically been a Black resort, created in early 1900s, probably before 1920, at a time when Blacks couldn't get property anywhere else, weren't able to buy it. And if they did, they would never see it the same again, because if you don't live there, you can't protect your property. So growing up in Idlewild, my mother was a school teacher. So we spent summers, teachers didn't teach in the summer, up there. And just so people will understand, because this is a Michigan resort area, my neighbors were from Chicago, New York City, Buffalo, New York, Indianapolis, Indiana, you name it. And so as kids, you would never see these people except when you went up there, because they lived so far away. So it was kind of a joy growing up to have that camaraderie with other people, water sports and that sort of stuff. I'm an avid water skier, slalom skier, and that sort of stuff. And
I heard that.
My neighbor, 3 houses down, who's probably now in his 50s, I taught how to water ski when he was 12. So people don't sell their properties very much. They pass it down to other family members, and it helps to create kind of a history.
We haven't built yet, but we are probably going to start a fund to build as a family, even if my cousin's just going to be the owner of it, and we'll create some form of.
Well, when they were marketing this as a Black resort area, they were selling individual lots. My grandfather, told me, I'm 3rd generation Idlewilder, he was first. A lot is 25 feet wide, by 100 feet deep. Now you need 4 lots to build something. But as they were outselling them throughout the country, it was great for people to just go buy a lot. You could buy a lot for $10. Well, the person would rather pay $2 in property taxes every year and hold on to their lot and be able to brag that they have property in Idlewild than ever condense it. So when you're talking about economic development, that hinders it tremendously. But no, that's always been my happy place. If there was a place I need to go to decompress, and there have been times in my life where those occur, and I'm sure they do for everybody.
Right. Well, you've also used, your, I don't know necessarily likeness would be the right word, but there's got a jazz concert up there. I know you've been a big supporter of that and have encouraged people to come up and support that over the summers. And I've again, my younger brother, who actually was my first guest, Sean, he's become kind of an internet sensation, but he goes up a lot with Judge Blount. And the judges conference, or the Black Judges Conference,
Was there last year.
Exactly.
Last summer.
It's my intent to get up there, but I can't let you go without a couple more things. I had, there's so much going on with you that I had to write a lot of these things down, but here they are. I got them over here. So, we're going to do a little lightning round. I know you don't, like you said, you're not a extrovert, but you hang out. So tell us, who's your favorite comedian?
Dave Chappelle.
Why?
Just intelligent, biting humor. There are a lot of good comedians, but he's the guy to me.
Okay. All right. So tell me about this.
I've got a 1936 Ford pickup that I've been working on. I've been a backyard grease monkey my whole life. I used to play with Corvettes a lot. In fact, I have a 72 Corvette, in the barn now, and don't do a lot of driving of them, but I just enjoy the restoring and that leisurely trip out and people looking around. Well, what year is that?
I just don't know where you find the time, because I see those trucks. I see your truck out there in front of your office all the time. So I'm just trying to, when I found out these little,
Well, I bought that 36 like 20, 25 years ago, and I fiddled with it since then.
Is it operational?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely. All right. So let's see. We got you back running in 26.
Yep.
And I'm sure the listening audience will be happy to hear that. I think you said this, but you keep yourself so fit.
It's just genes. Trust me. I wish I worked out more and did more. I think it's just genetic code, and thank God I got it.
But you got to, listen to what you just said. You did water skiing, working on cars, getting in and out of up to Idlewild. Some people just physically, and then you're putting in, not every day, I imagine, but I definitely see you putting in 10-hour days. As a person who can look out my window and see, if you're there, I can see you when you're there. And, what is it that, you could tell us, because a lot of times, particularly in the Black community, we don't, we don't see health as a very important thing. And I know that you do, because you spend a lot of time with the health organizations in Wayne County.
Yeah. Healthcare outcomes for people is really huge to me. And I wish I actually took better care of myself, but I certainly understand it. And also the mental health end of it. If I'm in the office 8 hours, trust me, I'm working on county business 12 or 13 hours, because I can't clear my mind of a number of things that I need to tag and keep up with, and deal with this or deal with that. And I think that's what makes Idlewild so important to me, because it's, when I get north of Saginaw, it's like the tension drops.
Right.
And you can actually spend a couple of days not worrying about work, so you can come back and do it. And I don't mean worrying in a negative sort of way. I just mean, there's always something going on. There's always a strategic plan to do something going forward, which means you try to build a group of people to help you get there. And you got to explain to people where you're trying to go in order for them to buy in, and, that sort of stuff. But I wouldn't trade it. It's been a good run so far, and hopefully it'll be a little longer.
Well, we pray that is the case. So I'm going to end with this. You talk. I think that culture and what you created is so important. You said you give us another 4 years. Within that 4 years, do you think you'll start mentoring someone to ascend? And it'd be the voice of the people, obviously. But do you start working on, because you've mentored a lot of us, and I say us, I include myself. Even though I don't have the desire to do what you did, it was crazy for me to think that and to desire to want to serve the city, but I do like service as a man for others from U of B High School. Are
And
you
and
going
it's
to?
changed your perspective
It
to
has.
some extent, and
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
really valuable. Yeah, I mean, I try to do that all the time.
Yeah.
I really do. Some people are amenable to it, some aren't. It is more people have the capacity. It's like in law school. In my class, there were 12 people that looked like me in my freshman class. 2 of us graduated. It wasn't an intellectual issue with any of them. It's a stress issue. It's a weeding out process. And I don't mean that they were weeding out African Americans more than other people. There's a heck of a drop
Right.
off rate.
Oh yeah.
But it's one of those things where you just got to be tough and you got to stick with it and you got to kind of understand what's at stake. For me, came from a family of professionals, doctors, lawyers, my mother's brothers and sisters. My mother was a school teacher. And so there was always the expectation that I'm going to college. There may not have been an outcome. In fact, my parents were really good at saying, just be good at whatever you do. And so they never tried to force me into law or whatever. In fact, when I came home one day and said I was going to be a deputy sheriff, you should have seen the look at them like, what? But never, they just said, think about it, think about it. And I thought about it. I needed a job, and I thought it was one that had enough variances that I wouldn't stay in one place forever. And then things kind of sprung off of that. So
Didn't do all bad.
not too bad. Not too bad.
Not too bad at all. Well, I want to thank you for coming by. I look forward to hearing great work, great things from the county, and definitely in the spirit of who Warren Evans is, to be helping the city be all that it can be. So, but I do want to thank you for coming by and being our second. My mom would hold it against me if my brother wasn't on first. It's definitely a pleasure to have you here, and I look forward to getting the call to serve when the county needs me.
And anytime I need a good attorney, Todd Perkins is there.
Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.